unbelievable thing I've ever been privileged to witness. Mayhem. It is bedlam.
This is the Boxing Talk and Old Time Boxing Show on UStream, presented by GAR1680. Here is your host, Paco Rivera.
Good afternoon and welcome to another broadcast of the Boxing Talk and Old Time Boxing Show on UStream. This show is brought to you by Golden Age Radio, GAR1680 AM. The phone lines will be open during the show, so feel free to call in anytime to offer your comments or opinions. The number is 605-215-1680. That's 605-215-1680. It was a very busy weekend in boxing this past week, with ShoBox putting on another one of its great shows last Friday night. And it appears that the push to bring boxing back into the living rooms and bedrooms of fight fans continues, as the NBC Sports Network, formerly the Versus Network, bounced back with a decent lineup and heavyweight bout for their scheduled Saturday night event after well-ranked heavyweight Eddie Chambers had canceled due to injury. If I'm not mistaken, NBC Sports is somewhat freely available everywhere, included with most satellite or cable television subscriptions, much like ESPN, whereas Showtime, HBO, and ShoBox are typically premium channels that require an additional fee. Several weeks ago, I spoke nostalgically about a time when boxing was plentiful on regular TV and how the sport has, over the decades that followed, received less and less exposure. But with networks like NBC Sports, ESPN2, Telemundo, and Fox Sports now offering almost weekly events of boxing, there is hope for the sweet science to make a comeback. Anyway, even with little television exposure, I personally don't think the sport will ever die, not as long as it is human nature, as it has been since the beginning of time, to desire watching two warriors battle it out using their trained hands and mind. Phone lines are open. Call with your comment or opinion. The number is 605-215-1680. That's 605-215-1680. Or you can email me at gar1680@gmail.com. You can also find us on our Facebook site, Golden Age Radio 1680. Just follow the link from our homepage, gar1680.webs.com. We are also on Twitter, and you can follow us there at GAR1680. Or you can share your thoughts on the chat panel right here on this UStream site.
This is the Boxing Talk Show on GAR1680.
Last week, I recapped a bout involving a Cuban fighter that defected from Cuba, your Jennings. And as it turns out, for the second week in a row, I'll be doing the same. As a matter of fact, in today's show, I'll be talking about two additional former Cuban amateurs. In the ShoBox main event last Friday night, Guillermo Rigondeaux, who defected from Cuba, fought the undefeated WBA super bantamweight champion Rico Ramos. 31-year-old Rigondeaux was also undefeated, with a record of 8 wins and no losses or draws. Much was said about Rigondeaux fighting for a title with just 8 professional fights on his resume. Having so few fights when entering the ring to face a champion is rare but not unheard of. One that always comes to mind with me is Leon Spinks, when he shocked the world with a split decision win over Muhammad Ali back in 1978. Spinks was 6-0 with one draw entering that bout. 6-0 when he took on the greatest, and he won. Ali, of course, avenged that loss several months later with a unanimous decision. Anyway, back to Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux, as did your Jennings, fought many fights out of Cuba as an amateur. It seems that most fighters out of Cuba have had about 300 or more amateur fights around the world before defecting to the United States. That's a hell of a lot of rounds when you do the math. Rigondeaux won gold medals in the Olympics twice. So was he ready for a shot at the title? I think so. And it's obvious that he was, after coming away with a win Friday night and taking the title from Rico Ramos. I wasn't too thrilled with how the fight went in general, and while I was happy for Rigondeaux to get the win, I wasn't too pleased with the way it ended. Rico Ramos, who entered the ring with a record of 20-0 to defend his title, was knocked down in the first round, but beat the count. The following rounds were somewhat slow-paced. While watching, I got the feeling that both fighters were trying to pick and choose what punch to throw, basically calculating the opponent very carefully instead of taking any risks at all. The crowd booed several times because of the inactivity. I didn't have too much of a problem with it. I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with being cautious and deciding how to measure your opponent during a fight. In the sixth round, which would turn out to be the final round of this match, they began to mix it up a little more. At one point, Ramos leaned forward and down, and Rigondeaux ended up wrapping a glove around the back of Ramos's head. Now, here's the problem I have. While Rigondeaux had Ramos's head tied, he swung an uppercut into Ramos's face. It appeared that Ramos complained about what he surely thought was a cheap shot. The referee separated the fighters, and I think the referee gave Rigondeaux a warning for head holding. In the meantime, Ramos walked over to the ropes and slumped the front of his body over it, appearing to be in a lot of pain. Rigondeaux apparently knew that Ramos was hurt, so he moved in quickly and pummeled Ramos with a barrage of punches until Ramos hit the canvas and was counted out. A 10 count. The Showbox undercard featured a great battle between two young, undefeated junior lightweight prospects when Joel Diaz Jr. defeated Guy Robb. Both fighters still have less than 10 professional fights each on their records, but by the way they fought, I think you may be seeing a lot more of them in the near future. It was quite a war. The winner of the scheduled 8-round bout, Joel Diaz Jr., was very impressive. The fight ended with a 7th round TKO.
You are listening to Golden Age Radio on 1680 AM in Concord, North Carolina. Please visit us on the web at GAR1680.webs.com.
On the following night, Saturday night's NBC Sports Fight Night Series, two American heavyweights, both from Philadelphia, put their undefeated records on the line in their early careers in the main event. Bryant Jennings, a 27-year-old with a record of 11-0, 5 by way of knockout, met Maurice Byarm, 29 years old with a record of 13-0 and 1 draw. 9 of Byarm's 13 wins were KOs. The fight turned out to be a good matchup. There was some explosive toe-to-toe action in various rounds. Jennings started off well, but it appeared to be a close fight after the 4th or 5th round. One thing I thought was very smart of Jennings was how he ended some rounds with a flurry of punches in the final 10 seconds. It appeared he had the presence of mind to listen for the knocking sound by the timekeeper to indicate 10 seconds remaining in the round, and then launched his assault. Freddie Roach, who was a commentator for the bout, analyzing the progress, referred to it as stealing the round, and I think he was absolutely right. I would think that judges are going to remember the final moments of a round much more than the first 2 minutes. Bryant Jennings walked away with a unanimous decision. In the first televised undercard, light middleweight Jesus Soto Carras fought Gabriel Rosado. The referee stopped that fight in the 5th round as Rosado was pummeling the Mexican Soto Carras. Rosado looked very impressive in his win. He had 5 losses entering the bout, but most of those came a little earlier in his professional career. He now believes he can take on anybody that is put in front of him in the ring. Here are some words from Rosado following the fight.
Foremost, I want to thank God, my Lord and Savior. Without God, nothing's possible. He gets all the honor and the glory. And, you know, I said I was going to put pressure on this guy. I'm a man of my word. This is what I practice. This is what I do. I wanted to make a statement that I'm ready for anybody out there. Anybody. And that's the statement I wanted to make today. This guy never been stopped. I wanted to prove that I could stop this guy.
Yeah, Soto Karass has taken a lot of punches from a lot of big welterweights. What made you think you could get him out of here so easily? My hunger, my determination. You know, I'm in this for real. I went through a lot of tough adversities early in my career, but this is a new beginning. 2012, new year, new look, down my hair. I feel good, and I just want to show the world that I'm ready. Congratulations. Thank you. I appreciate it. Shout out to my daughter who's watching back home. My mother, my grandmother. She's 102 years old. Abuelita. In Florida, Puerto Rico, I love y'all. And shout out to Mexico. All Mexican fighters are so tough, and I got nothing but respect for them.
In the second televised undercard fight, we saw a former Cuban amateur named Sullivan Barrera take on Damar Singleton in a light heavyweight bout. As was the case in the Jennings and Byarm main event, this fight also featured two undefeated boxers. Both fighters were 8-0. Barrera had about 300 amateur bouts while fighting out of Cuba, in which he reportedly won about 285 of them. He appeared to be a very quick-handed light heavyweight that is also heavy-handed. Barrera won a unanimous decision, but I had to give a lot of credit to Damar Singleton. He put up a tough fight. He was undefeated with 8 pro wins, but most of those fights may have come against lower quality opponents. Nevertheless, Singleton appeared to have a really good chin. He took some good shots throughout the 6-round bout and never really looked hurt at any time. Okay, in our soap opera digest segment of this boxing talk show, the latest rumor being heard through the grapevine is that Manny Pacquiao will be fighting Miguel Cotto again. Pac-Man's promoter Bob Arum has stated, however, that he will not say who is next in line, but that an official announcement will be made sometime this week. Pacquiao and Cotto last fought in 2009. Pacquiao Cotto 2 will likely take place in Las Vegas on June 9th. With that said, it's looking less and less that we will see Mayweather and Pacquiao get it on anytime soon. Mayweather had apparently called the Pac-Man on the telephone to discuss a matchup. A phone call that apparently got Mr. Bob Arum very upset when he found out about it. Arum has insisted that Pacquiao will not fight Mayweather, and in one report I read, he expressed his disgust about Mayweather blaming him for not allowing the fight to happen. Is Floyd Mayweather the only one that blames Arum for not allowing that fight to take place? Lamont Peterson has appealed the WBA's order for a rematch with Amir Khan. I wonder if Peterson's camp thinks the mandatory rematch will take him out of the picture for a bout with Manny Pacquiao, since Peterson was one of the 4 on that short list of fighters to be Pac-Man's next opponent. In the meantime, Mayweather is scheduled to fight on May 5th, and his opponent is also not yet known.
You are listening to Golden Age Radio on 1680 AM in Concord, North Carolina. Please visit us on the web at GAR1680.webs.com.
ESPN2's Friday Night Fights returns this week with a matchup between the Russian junior welterweight Ruslan Provodnikov and David Torres, who fights out of the state of Washington and will pretty much be fighting for a home crowd at the Northern Quest Casino in Spokane. Provodnikov has a record of 19-1. Torres is 21-2. Boxing commentators for the event, Joe Tessitore and Teddy Atlas, described Provodnikov as a fighter with a lot of offense and no defense. The makings for a very exciting fight. Torres is 33 years old and a veteran of the sport. He has been fighting professionally for 8 years. In the undercard Friday night, you'll have Ji-Hoon Kim versus Jacoby Amidu. The Korean lightweight Ji-Hoon Kim has been defined as a brawler and power puncher that does get sloppy at times, but is very much a crowd pleaser with his style. Amidu fights out of Ghana with a record of 20-2 and 1 draw. For those of you that would like to stick around and continue chatting about boxing with each other here on the UStream chat panel, there will be a great old-time boxing event that will be streamed here for you. The fight that will be shown is Gene Fullmer versus Carmen Basilio from August 28, 1959. It was the first of 2 times that these 2 boxers met in the ring. Gene Fullmer had also fought the great middleweight champion Sugar Ray Robinson 4 times during his career, and he won 3 of them, which surely does say something about the greatness of Fullmer. I am Paco Rivera. See you next week.